Hi, I'm Philip.
And I'm Stacy.
And we're the All Reds.
Today we're going to talk about grace and respect and what those two words have to do with intergenerational ministry.
A few days ago, Stacy and I were having a conversation about intergenerational ministry, and a few words just kept coming up. Those words were grace and respect, and we wanted to kind of talk through those with you.
Yeah, so let's begin with just saying that we know a lot of us have come from a pretty traditional background of kind of going our separate ways when we enter the church on a Sunday morning or any time that we're going to have a large worship gathering. As in, children go to their areas, teens go to their areas, and adults go to theirs. Now, of course, the teens often join the adults too, but we are all pretty used to things being kind of targeted towards our age group. So the children are in a place where, they are kind of more welcome to be loud and energetic and physical, moving around a lot. Teens are used to being with their peers where, it's okay for them to discuss things on their level or just being themselves. And of course, adults are used to, we do this at this point, we do this at this point, sort of those unwritten rules of being in a service together. So it's a challenge when we all come together if that's what our background is, because we're just really focused in on, hey, that's not how I'm used to doing things. So kindness, respect, grace, those are all a very big part of coming together and learning and worshiping together. So when it comes to children, we often say, they need to learn respect. They need to respect what is done here. But in this sacred place, this, holy ground of God's where we come and we worship, there's no rule saying that sacred means quiet or still. Sacred is just that it's God's, and God created all of our different ages, and he said, let the children come to me. So what does it mean to have children give respect during a service, a time where we are gathering together? I like to think that there's a line of respect that we want to help our kids follow. And let me give an example of that. In our local church that we most recently were in for many years, I would often end up sitting with children whose parents were serving in another area of the church. And during the worship, through music, there was one child who really loved to dance, and I don't think that his dancing was necessarily like David in worship to the Lord, but he loved to dance, he loved music, and that was just a part of who he was, a God-given thing that God, had allowed him to enjoy. And so he would dance and be silly, and I would help him understand that there's a line. Like, if you are worshiping through music and to you that might be silly dancing, that's okay until you begin to distract other people around you. If it's causing other kids to not pay attention, if it's causing other teens or adults to look at you and laugh at you instead of focusing on worship, we want to pull back and we want to give respect to those around us. Right. So there's space for you to be who you are, there's space for you to enjoy things, there's space for you to be a kid, but there's also space for this person to be able to focus and learn. So we want to help our kids and our parents to understand that we're going to give them grace while we learn what that line of respect is. And what happens when kids see us gently guiding them through that, saying, hey, it's okay to be this way, but we want you to remember about these people, they learn a respect that's not just authoritative or following the rules. They say, oh, okay, so there is a place for me and there's a place for you. So we're learning to give them grace and they're learning to give us respect.
That's right.
But this can be flip-flopped. Do you want to talk about that?
It absolutely can, because as much as we want our kids to give us respect, we need to give our kids and teens respect as well. And that looks a little different. When we respect a child, we are saying, and a teen, we are saying, we are giving you a place at the table. We are inviting you into this space that for so long has been our space. And now we're saying, this is all our space, and we are making room for you, and we respect you enough to not just say you have to be little adults, but we respect you enough to say, you are important to us, and we want you here, and we want everything that comes with you. And it's okay if you're loud sometimes. It's okay if you laugh and giggle sometimes. These things are going to accentuate what we are doing, not be less than, not make it less than what we are doing.
And so then we want to teach the kids to give that grace the same way we want to give the kids grace. So, like I've heard my kids say before, why does that adult do that way? Or why are they doing that way? We say, well, just like we're allowing you to, be yourself, you need to allow these adults to be themselves. We're all trying to figure out what this means. We keep hearing the words new normal.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through a season of change, of transition right now. So we may even want to prep our children and our teens before we go into these services and say, this is going to be different for you, but hey, it's going to be different for us too. And there's beauty in that, teaching them that, hey, we're all in this together, this learning of what it means to worship together and learn together, and just talking it up, saying there could be great things that come from this. We all belong here, and it's going to have a learning curve, but we believe good things can come from this.
So how awesome is it that when we are all worshiping together and we are all feel welcomed in worship together, not only by God, but by each other, there's such a beauty that comes from that. And our kids are going to recognize that, our teens are going to recognize that, and I think our adults are going to recognize that in the long run. And so that's a really important thing.
Well, I was just going to say, a lot of people talking about this are people who have a background in children's ministry. I think a lot of children's pastors and children's directors are being given the task right now by their lead staff saying, hey, help us figure out how to make this work. And so I can imagine that some adults are probably feeling like, man, this is all about us changing things to make kids and teens feel more welcome. Let me challenge you with this. I hear all the time this narrative of, kids are leaving the church, teens are leaving the church, they're not interested. This is an amazing opportunity for us to do something that is called by some people giving our kids and our teens keys to the church.
Right.
What that means is we are giving them a place, like not just you physically come in this place, but we're saying there is a place for you to contribute, there's a place for you to serve, there's a place for you to be yourself. We don't want the kids to just join a location that the adults are at. We want them to feel that the church is for them, because when they feel that the church is for them, they begin to understand that Jesus is for them, and that's where life change happens. So I know some of you are probably thinking this is just a season to get us through when we can be normal again.
Right.
And some of you, that may be what God is leading you to do. But we hear often that people want to be more intergenerational, whether it's every Sunday and in every gathering, or whether it's once or twice a month, whether it's every time you walk through the doors, your focus is intergenerational. I challenge you to not look at this as just a stepping stone, but to ask God, what do you want to do with this time? Is there something new that you want to do through this? And, join groups that are for intergenerational ministry, start conversations with other people. We want to continue this conversation because we believe that this is a fork in the road where we get to say, maybe the way we were doing things before wasn't as successful because we were ignoring some very important things. And this isn't a, negative towards how we've done things in the past. It's realizing that God can always open our eyes to new ways of doing things. And our kids and our teens desperately need to know that the church is not a location they visit, but it is for them. It is a part of their life. And through the church, they will begin to understand that, Jesus is for them, and that God has a plan for them.
Right.
That begins a lot of times with us telling them, God has a plan for you, and then giving them the opportunity to be a part of what is going on.
That's absolutely right. So in the comments below, we want you to take a moment and intentionally gather in this conversation. We want to ask a question. How are you intentionally working to show grace and respect to all ages during this time? So if you have some ways that you're doing that, or if you want to ask the question, I'm struggling with this, so maybe someone else can answer it, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, give us some tangible ways that you are trying to, get ahead of the problems you see that might happen, or maybe some ways that you have already had success in this, because there's really not, from what we can tell, a whole lot of great intergenerational models for us to follow. I think that there's just a lot of people realizing that this is an important conversation and we are all learning together. This is not something that we have mastered and led in a church. It is something we feel God is calling us to. We feel passionate about it, but we are learning right along with everybody else. And so we want to hear from you, and we are excited to continue this conversation.
Thank you, guys.
See you next time.